Hey, it's Jeff Barnett. I'm co-founder and business development chief of Suite 420 Solutions. We are one of the first lenders in cannabis, where we're fucking nuts. So join us on the Jesse T Show.
Jeff, welcome to the Jesse T Show, brother.
Hey, thanks, man. I appreciate you.
Yeah, man, it's been a beautiful journey so far in connecting and learning about each other and having some similar backgrounds, from athletics to sobriety to overcoming some odds to business. And I love your energy, and I love what you stand for. So tell the world who hasn't heard about you yet a little bit about who you are and what you do.
Oh man, so I'm Jeff Barnett. I live in Denver, Colorado. Grew up in Colorado mostly. Born in Iowa, but grew up in Colorado. Started doing entrepreneurial stuff in the early 2000s. I was part of a partner in a Play-Doh company. We like to say we were the world's largest, or the largest Play-Doh company in the U.S., private label Play-Doh company in the U.S., because we were the only private label Play-Doh company in the U.S. because there was no way to make money doing it. So that was a nice little introduction into being an entrepreneur. But from there, I kind of learned a bunch of other things. I got into the toy industry through the Play-Doh company. I started a business back in 2003. Partnered with a couple of guys. David McCloskey was a good friend, a good partner of mine. He had a product called Superstructs, and then along the pathway, we developed friendships and partnerships with some gentlemen in Sweden. Delta of Sweden was the name of their company. Through them, they actually created this item called, they didn't know what to call it. It was a unique toy, and we created the concept of kinetic sand and took that to market, and eventually it became a category. It created a whole new category in stores, and it created an amazing journey for us for a few years. It was amazing. Some of the things we discovered along that pathway, it's very similar to like the weed industry in a lot of ways, is the fact that we had hockey stick growth, with just zooming growth, where we were getting POs after PO, just huge, but we couldn't keep up with the production, right? The money. So it became like you always hear these stories sometimes where you could be so successful that you could actually bankrupt your company,
yeah,
with yourself. So, and that's where we found ourselves. So I went to my board and I said, hey guys, look, we need the money we've got this. We'll go back just a couple seconds. We got a huge order from Costco, and we had great margin in it. We had everything we needed to do. We just didn't have the money to make it. And so I went to the banks. The banks said, hey, great, this is exactly what we'd like to see. But if you're going to look to borrow $1 million, we're going to need you to put $1 million into a CD, so we have this liquid collateral, and then we'll lend you $1 million. And I was like, wait a minute, let me get this straight. If I give you $1 million, you will lend me back $1 million. What if I need 2 million?
Yeah.
It was crazy. And so I started looking at different ways to finance, some alternative type financing. I couldn't find really any good purchase order financing. So I went to my partners at the time and said, we should start a purchase order finance company. So we did. We learned some things along the pathway, financed some of our own company stuff, and then started expanding. During that time frame, I met a receivable financing company, a gentleman named Dennis O'Carroll, and we became business partners later on with our new company, Suite 420 Solutions, because we were both monitoring the weed industry and the fact that they were in the same situation where they needed capital very same thing, where they had hockey stick style growth, lack of capital to meet that growth. And we knew we could put together some solutions for them. So I'm like everybody else. I got into the weed industry by getting into the toy industry, which that's my joke.
Man, and there's a lot to kind of just, you put a lot of years in just maybe 2 or 3 minutes of a soundbite, but there's a lot of industries that you've seen, and you did say that, interestingly enough, from toys to weed and everything in between, there was a lot of crossover and a lot of similarities. And I guess maybe once you start getting into business, you can kind of start framing things and have a paradigm of how you run it. But run back to the kinetic sand, because I think that's something that is really powerful. I mean, my kids are 7 and 5. today, and they have kinetic sand and all sorts of stuff that they play with. And so talk about the process of finding, I guess, did you and the team discover this and create this, or how did that happen? And then how did you get it to market?
No, it's funny. You have to go back a few years earlier before that launched on the marketplace. I was in New Orleans. So this would have been 2005, 2006. So it was right before Katrina. I was at a trade show in New Orleans, and I was getting on an elevator, and it's hot. It's New Orleans, and I'm wearing like shorts and a t-shirt, and I've got my trade show badge on. I'm going to go set up at the trade show that day. And I get on, and there's this kind of a little guy that's on the thing. He's a little shorter, but he's dressed like in a suit, and he's wearing the same stuff I'm doing. He's heading over the show, and I said, what are you doing? And I looked at his badge, and on his badge I saw Delta Sweden, and I just happened to know that company. I knew what they did, and I said, "Are you Delta Sweden? Because I love your product." They had a product called Delta Sand. And it was one of the first really cool moldable sand that was on the marketplace. They used to take beeswax and coat sand with beeswax.
Oh wow!
So you could sculpt and all sorts of stuff.
It's cool.
Yeah, it was kind of it was like the first step of becoming what would later become kinetic sand, or actually moon sand was another big product that they came up with right before that. So. I met with Jonas, who was the CEO of Delta Sand, and I said, I think what you guys are creating is amazing. I love it. And I kept coming over to his trade show booth during the show, and that's when I realized at the time that they didn't have any distribution here in the U.S. They were willing to sell their product, but you had to buy a container of it at a time, and there was nobody at that show who could do that. They could have been showing Fabergé eggs for all that matter. I mean, everybody would have loved them, but no one could afford to buy it, especially that much. So, so at the time, I was, this was when I was with, doing the Play-Doh, private label Play-Doh company, and I thought this would be a nice little extension to what we're doing. And so I started talking to him a little bit about doing some business development with him. And by the end of the show, he had come back to me and said, "Hey, we want you guys to be our North American distributor." And I was like, "Wow." I said, "You want us to do it through the Play-Doh company?" He goes, "No, you don't understand. I want you, you and your team, whoever you are, to be our North American distributor. I want you to get out of the other things."
Wow. Okay.
Stuff. And at the time, the company was not doing well, so it was good timing. So, just a happenstance meeting in an elevator with a gentleman. We were kind of staying at an off of the beaten path hotel too. It wasn't even like we were at the main hotel for the conference. So that developed into a long friendship, myself and Jonas and his business partner, Stefan. And, we just started working together. I started taking on most of their sales for them because they were really engineers and chemical engineers and developers. They loved developing unique compounds, unique products, but they didn't really like the sales aspect of the business. So eventually that led to, well, why don't I take over your European sales? So I moved to Sweden for, about 6 to 9 months and lived over there. And we ended up opening up offices in Sweden. And eventually we opened up offices in China. And so from starting in my garage in a quick introduction in an elevator, we ended up having offices and warehouses in Europe, in Asia, and here in Colorado. So it was quite the journey. And again, it's just, it started in an elevator. And if you know anything about Swedish people, and I swear they're the best people in the whole world, I love them, is that they're really, initially they're kind of standoffish.
Yep.
They're not outgoing. And to actually talk to someone in an elevator, like when I was telling people in Sweden how I met Jonas, they were like, "You got to be kidding. You guys actually talked in an elevator?" So I call it my ultimate, elevator pitch.
Literally.
It really was. And so, I love those times. I learned a lot along the pathway. I've done things. I traveled all over the world doing this type of stuff, and then got into the finance world, right? And to go back to kinetic sand, because kinetic sand really is the big hit that we had. I want to say it was 2010, 2011. Jonas and Stefan came out to our offices in Colorado, and they had this product that they didn't know what to do with. And they just put it on the table. And they just said, well, we don't know. We like it, but we don't know. And so we started putting our hands into it. And when it all came down to when we were developing products for the toy industry, it's all about, to me, the play pattern. What's the play pattern of this product? And I couldn't see a play pattern with this. But what I discovered was my hands, I couldn't stop playing with it.
It felt good.
It felt amazing in your hands, right?
Yep.
As you're running your hands through, as you're picking it up. And the fact that I already had a product with them called Moon Sand, which was a really good selling product as well. I didn't want to take sales from Moon Sand and just put them into this new product line. I thought, there's no reason to do that. So originally I passed on the kinetic sand compound.
Wow.
I don't even think it's I don't think it, but all my people that have been working with me at the time kept on saying, you're nuts. This is so cool. I don't know what the play pattern is either, but all I know is I can't stop playing with it. It's very
yeah.
And so we decided, okay, we'll do it. Now we have to come up with a name. My business partner, David, we were going through all sorts of stuff. The name of our company at the time was Waba Fun. And we were trying to come up with a unique name for this. And, we were thinking Waba Lava, something kind of like that. And we're like, well, no, people don't really want to put their hands in lava.
Yeah.
So it was a bunch of different naming things. And finally, after, trying to go through and naming, we were looking to hire a company to do it, but then we said, no, we'll do it ourselves. So finally, we've been sitting around for hours trying to come up and name it, playing with it. Our hands are in it. And finally, my partner, David, gets up and says, fuck it, kinetic sand, walks out the door. And we looked at each other and we said, kinetic sand.
Perfect.
So we started marketing it out on the marketplace under the name Kinetic Sand. I got to tell you that the coolest thing about that product line, and knowing when you have a hot product in the toy industry, we were at the New York Toy Fair in 2011, and we got the stand, we're featuring it, and we got a lot of people around us. And a guy in a long trench coat comes up and he goes, "Hey, can I talk to you?" And I said, "Okay," And he goes, "Hey, I've been watching this sand thing, and I got to tell you, I'm not going to name the company." He goes, "I work for this company. I've been there for 15 years, and I've had 9 home runs at that company. Where I found products on the marketplace. I'm going to tell you right now, this is number 10."
Wow.
And I was like, wow, the hair in the back of my neck stands up. I said, cool. Well, so what does that mean, home run? Like, what, are you going to place an order for $2,000 and think, hey, this is great? He goes, I'm going to order 500,000 units of this. I was like, I don't even know if I can produce 500,000 units for it, but you give me the PO, we'll figure it out. And sure enough, I mean, they hit the number dead on. And so they helped us launch the product into the marketplace.
Wow.
And from there, it took off. A major company in that works with mass market, Spin Master, was also a partner of Delta Sweden. And so they took that product into the mass market, and it really created categories within Target, Walmart, and all these things. And eventually we were selling, I don't know what the final number was, but it was, from a product that was dumped on our table in 2011 to where I believe our biggest month might have been 2000, or biggest year might have been 2014. For us anyway, it worldwide, it's probably sold $500 million, just throwing it on the table.
It's a lot of sand.
It's a lot of sand. And like every good product, it all basically is based on silly putty. It's the same stuff that silly putty, same kind of polymer, same everything else, but that same polymer coating sand created this really unique product line. So
super cool.
It really is. And my biggest claim, I don't want to say this is my biggest claim to fame, but one of the things about it is we focused on the education market when we were in the toy industry. And I would say almost every kindergarten classroom in the United States has kinetic sand in their classroom. If not almost, it probably got to be 80-90%. So when we were going to trade shows in the education market, especially in early childhood, we were the sand guys, and everybody just, they loved what we were doing.
Rock stars in the industry, man.
Totally. We were like rock stars in there. For
big hair, guitars.
We could have done it, man. We could have had groupies, man, if we were into that. So
there you go. So let me ask you. So you create this market and this worldwide hit. what was the journey like from there? Once you really kind of stepped into that experience, did you do that for a few years? And then what was the transition from that? Like, how did you, a lot of people, when they have a home run or multiple home runs and they're in a specific industry, they get romantic, and sometimes they shut off their ability to think outside the box because they're so, tunnel vision, which can be good in some instances. But how did you transition out of that industry into the next venture?
Well, it's a great story there too. So when we started growing really fast. We knew, David and I recognized the fact that neither one of us wanted to run an international company and all sorts of stuff. We called ourselves a little mini multinational, and it was we knew that we needed to bring in potentially like a real CEO and everything else. We also had these things, and we had this. It turned out to be a wrong thought process. Was that we believed we could grow this thing ourselves to $250 million over the next 5-7 years, whatever, at least 100 million, and one of the things was we knew we had patents all over the compound itself. We knew that we were good there. What we hadn't considered was especially in China, when they were knocking off, they're great at knocking off products. They're just phenomenal at it. And we thought there's no way they're going to make the investment in the sand and the polymer and the machines that it takes, because it was a big investment by Delta Sweden to create all this stuff. But you know what they did? They just went down to the beach, scooped up sand into a plastic bag, and then they copied our packaging.
Wow.
And so they ruined the brand, at least at our level, by just copying the packaging, which they could do easily. And then people would, all of a sudden you start seeing things coming up on the line saying, "Ooh, I don't know this. I don't know what everybody's crazy about this product. It's just, it's coming in the Ziploc baggie. It's nasty. It's kind of gross."
Wow.
And so it ruined the brand, for a while, especially when we were doing larger quantities and stuff like that. Spin Master had a different method of how they did it at the mass market, so it really didn't impact their business that much. So yeah, it was weird. So we didn't even consider that. And then we had all this hubris because we thought, hey, we're good, man. We got this product. We've created this from nothing. We're taking it, so our egos got a little big.
Oh yeah.
Like now we're going to take it to the next level. We're going to do this. The toy industry is notorious. Everybody thinks it's all fun and games because it's a toy industry, right? It's nothing but bastards and crocodiles.
I believe it.
That's the industry. And and how it works there is you've got a hot product. You've got maybe 18 months of success to where you're driving your business, and you end up increasing all of your costs because you've got to put in the infrastructure in order to handle the distribution of all this stuff.
Yep.
So you drive your costs and everything else. And if you don't have another product that's hot coming on the tail end of that, you're in trouble. So it would have been better for us at that time when we were at our very peak, probably 2014, in our sales, to find a buyer and just sell off the brand at that point in time. And we could have walked away probably fat and happy. But for us, our hubris was too big. Our egos were too big. And, and that's when all the stuff started happening with China and everything else. So it hit us hard, and it went, our sales probably got cut in half after 2 years.
Wow.
So after building up a fairly large company. During that time, I had transitioned out because obviously we wanted to have a CEO come in. He was probably the right guy, for a growing company, but he was probably not necessarily the right guy for a company that was seeing these types of issues. So I left the company in 2000, I want to say 2017, 2018. I don't even know if it's still in business, quite frankly. I think it is.
Okay.
But they're probably doing something smaller.
Were you ready when it was time for you to go? Were you just done, or was it a little bit bittersweet?
It was bittersweet for sure. And there was some bad feelings. I wanted to get into the weed industry.
Yep.
And I was upfront with them about, here, I'm getting ready to go. Here's my plan to exit. And when it was time to go, it was bittersweet. So I have nothing but good things to say about my partners and my partnership, though. They were there for me throughout the whole time. And even though it didn't necessarily end the way I wanted it to end, and I think it damaged friendships, obviously. but at the end of the day, I have nothing but good things to say about them.
Talk about the appeal, the draw, maybe the personal advocacy to get into the weed industry, because, to people that are listening or watching, until you have that fleshed out, they're probably going to see how you made that jump from toys to weed, which I guess weed could be used as a toy if you want.
Totally. It's like everything else. It all started in the toy industry.
That's it.
So part of my story, and I think I told you this, is if I was going to describe my path through life, I probably wouldn't even talk about some of my successes or failures in businesses. My journey would really talk about addiction and pain, right?
Yep.
Trying to find some reduction in pain, or some methodology of reducing pain. Mostly through athletic. My endeavors as an athlete growing up, and my arthritis in my body and other things. So I was a raging alcoholic until 2007, September 30th, 2007. I had my last drink.
What was raging for you?
Everything, right? So I was running the toy company at that point in time, but like almost everybody who's got an addiction issue, it's always constantly that you're it's like trying to hold on to a handful of sand. We'll use the sand analogy, is everything's coming through your fingers and you're trying to hold it together, and the anxiety and everything else, and then all you're doing is drinking and drinking and drinking, and all your obsession is about drinking and drinking and drinking. And eventually at the end, I was kind of a blackout drunk, that I would wake up some mornings and I'd be like, I don't remember going to bed, was I out?
Wow.
And the horrendous headaches that I had, the horrendous hangovers I had for years, and trying to run a company and all this stuff. And we were holding it together, but barely. And the way I always tell people, I was circling the drain in a lot of ways, because I wasn't focused and I wasn't able to bring the best of my abilities and my best self to the table. I just couldn't. My addiction had me in with all it could. And so on September 30th, 2007, I poured down my last drink. And for the next 30 days, I tried to do it on my own. I just kind of white knuckled it. I had been fighting with my wife, that whole time. And she was threatening to leave. We had a new baby, and I was like, the hell, I won't drink anymore. I'll throw it down. And so I really didn't do it for myself at first. I really did it just to try to survive and save the family.
Yep.
Fast forward 30 days, after trying to do that on a white knuckle scale, and I found myself really this is where I hit my bottom, right? This on October 30th. I knew I was going to drink again. I was so insane. My mind, physically I had given it up, and probably that addiction was out of my body. Spiritually, I was dead. And the obsession that I had about alcohol, it was just spinning and spinning and spinning in my head. I knew I was going to drink again, so I knew I couldn't live with it or couldn't live without it. That's
okay.
The point of that. I put a gun in my mouth, and I was thinking about pulling the trigger, and I was shaking. I was scared. I was crying, and I was like, "What if my son finds me? What if that fucks people up for the rest of their lives, right?"
Oh yeah.
See, survivors of suicide, there's a really high percentage of them that kill themselves. And I didn't want to have that legacy for my kid. And quite frankly, I just think I was just so selfish and self-centered and everything else at that point in time that, I was kind of hoping that in the back of my mind that my now ex-wife would have walked in on me and saw me with so much pain and would have just saw that, that then she would have said, "Oh, now I get you. Now I understand."
Because that's all you wanted was understanding and acceptance, and just, yeah.
I just, what I wanted to do was drink without all the consequences of what I wanted.
Yeah.
I knew I couldn't do that.
Real quick, when you were really into it, maybe not even this time period when you knew you were going to drink again after 30 days, but like, were you hitting the bottle all day? Were you waking up drinking? Like, how was the actual progression through the day? Like, would you just drink intermittently?
No, for me, it was like, I never really drank until late in the afternoons.
Okay.
And I would always wake up, I'd end up, my pattern probably for 5 to 10 years was I'd get up, I'd go to work, I would work hard, and I would be telling myself, I'm not going to drink today. I'm not going to do it. right? I got shit to do. I got, things. By about noon, I started thinking about that first drink.
Okay.
And 2, 3 o'clock in the afternoon, I was looking for excuses, maybe to hit happy hour early. Hey, we had a great sale today. Let's all celebrate. And so I would hit the bar on the way home. Usually, 3, 4 o'clock, I'd have one or two major beers, like I don't know, like those big 24 ounces. And I'd hit like maybe two of those at a happy hour. And I'd always take somebody with me, because then it was, I was drinking socially. I wasn't drinking because I was by myself and I wanted to drink. And I would drink those fast, right? I wanted the effect and I wanted to hit quick.
Yep.
Time I got home, I was still coherent. You couldn't tell I was drunk, but you could smell it on me, I'm sure. And then, for dinner, we'd have wine. And so I probably would have 2 to 3 glasses of wine on top of the two, 24-ounce beers. And then, it would be time to, my during, depending on my son was born in 2000. So during that time frame, I'd probably wait until we kind of could put him down, got him ready. I'd help with the bath, whatever. I would probably just have a glass of wine. And then as soon as he was down, my wife was now ready to start, relaxing for her day. That's when I'd hit the vodka or the scotch or whatever other.
So it's a slow progression into the evening. And then whenever the responsibilities and duties of life kind of simmered down, this is when you could get into the liquor.
Totally. And, I started off when I started drinking vodka. I started drinking vodka and lemonade. I thought it was a delicious, refreshing drink. I would probably put about maybe a quarter of the glass, the tumbler I had, it would be vodka, and the rest would be filled up with lemonade and ice. And eventually the lemonade was, a little less and less, until eventually I was just drinking straight tumblers of vodka because I wanted the effect. And, I'd start doing that probably 8, 9 o'clock at night. And then at 1 o'clock in the morning, I'm in the bathroom, either getting sick or just holding my head. And I'm just like, what the fuck, man? How am I here again? I wasn't even going to drink.
Yep.
And that insanity went on for years, 5, 10 years. And, I always tell people, like, when they think about hell, and it's usually some type of religious, fire and brimstone. I don't think that's it. I think hell, quite frankly, is just a lack of the light. It's a lack of hope. It's a lack of all. And I feel like every alcoholic that hits their bottom, they're in hell. They have no hope. They're hopeless. And there's this whole lack of anything that's spiritual or anything in your life.
Yeah.
And good Lord, I don't want to be there again. But every day I would be like, I can't do this. I can't keep this up. And then 2, 3 o'clock in the afternoon, I'd be already obsessing about
things would take over. And you and I have shared my part of the story, and people have heard this, but I mean, I was very similar, but I was using opiates, and it went from OxyContin, and then it went all the way to heroin.
Yeah.
And you get stuck in this loop, and you're in the scarcity mindset, anxiety. When you brought up anxiety, I actually hadn't thought about that, but like a flashback to all the times where I'd be anxious about where I was going to get my next hit, my next fix. Like, when am I going to, if it doesn't look like I'm going to get high today, I need to get high today. And then you start, probably more mentally than anything, start freaking yourself out, and, with heroin and opiates, you start getting withdrawal, start getting sick, you get sweat. And a lot of it's probably mentally in the beginning. And then it's a really, like you said, it's a hell on earth. And I remember right before I stopped, because I had about 2 years of doing this. And I used to go to sleep dreaming about when I wasn't doing drugs, and I would have dreams about being clean and sober, and like how my life was before, with work and sports and relationships. And then I'd wake up back to my living hell, so to speak, and kind of start the process all over again. And I can remember when I took my last shot of heroin in 2006. I went from Boston to Georgia, took a Greyhound bus, left the world behind in Boston, and started over anew here in Georgia. And I can remember the first few months I was here, I would start having dreams of being a junkie again. But then when I'd wake up, I'd be like, oh my God, I'm clean. I'm safe. So it was like this weird reverse psychology where I was a junkie dreaming of being sober. And then for the first few months of being sober, I would dream about being a junkie again. And it was just this weird mind fuck that was like, dude, you get a second chance. Like, don't fuck this up.
Yeah.
And it was wild.
Yeah. It even happens every once in a while now, where I'll have a dream when I'll be dreaming that I drank that night or something like that. And you're like, oh my God, and it takes a second.
Freaks you out.
I talked to, I went through the AA, and I'm still a member of AA, and I love it. And I talked to a sponsor one time, and I asked him about that. I said, it's the weirdest thing. And I was talking to a guy in NA about it too. And he was like, that happens to me all the time, just like you described. I'm thinking, here I am, sober. Now I'm thinking about, reusing or using again. I'm no longer clean. And my sponsor gave me the best advice on that. He goes, do you know what it means when you dream about that shit and you're thinking about it, like that? I know you're thinking about, I'm going to have a slip, or I'm going to, you know what that means? That means you were sleeping and you were having a dream.
Yeah. That's all it is.
But to us, to you and me, who fought the fight and know the battle and know that, I'm as good today as I can be. Tomorrow, I don't know about tomorrow, but today I know I'm not going to use or drink. It is, it's a nightmare.
Yeah, it's what it is. It's a living nightmare. It's being in hell.
Yeah.
Being stuck in a loop that you can't get out of, that try as hard as you might. A lot of people don't ever get stuck. They never get unstuck. They just stay in that place. And brother, I'm just thankful you're alive. I know what it's like to have those feelings of stuckness and, despair and depression. But you were able to, you said, get past the 30 days and then you ended up hitting it again.
No, I got past the 30 days and put the gun in my mouth. And that's at the point where I just knew there had to be a different solution. There had to be a different way of doing this. So my ex-wife and I knew a person in AA that had been in there for like 12 to 15 years, and I just couldn't figure out. I said it had to be a cult. She's sober. Why is she still going? But at least I knew I was smart enough to give her a call, right? And so I called her and I said, I don't know what to do. I was crying and I was like, I'm at the end of my rope, and I know I'm going to drink, and I can't drink because I know it's going to kill me. I just don't know what to do. And she kind of laughed and she goes, oh man, I've been there. I totally get that. Why don't you go to this meeting at high noon? I was living in Fort Collins at the time. Why don't you go to the high noon meeting at the church down here, blah, blah, blah. And I think you'll find some really good relief there, and you'll find some people who could help you. So, okay. So my first meeting I don't want to get too much into the AA stuff, but my first meeting was, I got there, it was, a course that starts at noon. That's why it's called high noon. So it's like 11:30. I get there in the parking lot about 11:50, and I'm going to go in, and there's dozens of people that are starting to head in. And it's funny, they don't look like drunks like I feel. Like they look kind of happy and there's someone laughing and stuff like that. I can imagine laughing at this point. So then the clock hits 12 o'clock and I haven't gotten out of my car yet. And I'm sitting there going, oh shit, I blew it. I can't go in and be late. That would be disrespectful. 12:05, right? And now I'm getting ready to start my car and take off and think, well, that didn't work for me. Right.
Wow.
And all of a sudden there's a knock on my window, just out of the blue. And guy rolls, gives me the roll down the window symbol. And he goes, are you here for the high noon meeting? And I said, yeah, but it's 12:05. I don't want to be an asshole, walk into my, that meeting late. He goes, oh man, you're only late to your first meeting. Let's go. And so he walks me in, I sit down at a table, and quite frankly, this is my first AA meeting, and I'm 30 days sober. So I get a 30-day check,
Wow. Instant recognition.
I got this shit down solid.
Right. Come in, hit a home run.
Well, I go, this is easy. I didn't realize it was going to be this easy. Well, and then I sit down next to a guy, and they're asking for people to, if you're new here, and introduce yourself. And I introduce myself, and he slides this book across the table at me, in the big book, and he goes, I just want you to know you never have to drink again, and this book can save your life. I was like, wow, that's pretty ballsy to say that.
Yeah.
You don't know me. I'm on the verge of drinking now anyway. And he slides it across and he goes, nope, this book can save your life. And so I opened the book, and I remember when I had the gun in my mouth thinking, there's got to be a better solution. There's got to be a solution. I opened up the book, just opened it. And on page 25 of the big book, in squiggly lines, and that's when it's important, because it's in squiggly lines, it said, there is a solution. First words I ever saw out of the big book, there is a solution. And it hit me like a ton of bricks. I mean, I started like tearing up right then and there. And I was like, holy fuck. It was like a spiritual experience, one of many that I've had in the program, but it really rocked my world. And I embraced the program from that point forward, right? I wasn't a person who who, questioned, doubted, or whatever, I was like, there is a solution. That's what this book just told me.
The universe was reaching out to you.
It felt that way, and I'm going to do whatever you tell me to do. Right. So,
wow.
Boom. I was off to the races when it came to, I put as much effort into staying sober as I did into drinking. So I've embraced it, and I've stayed in the program. I've done it. I'm still in it. I love it. I highly recommend it to anybody out there who's listening, who's questioning it. It's not a cult. Feel free. You can. I mean, I know, like, a lot of people read Tank's Good News and stuff like that, and Tank will tell you, he's been in the program. I think he's got, I can't remember, 20 years, 18 years, something like that. He puts out every year on his birthday, like, if you have a question, reach out to me.
Yep.
Reach out. I will help you. And I feel the same way, right? My sole purpose in life right now is to help other people find sobriety. And I do this other stuff on the side, right? This job stuff I do, this work I do. So I know this has been kind of a long roundabout way to get to it, but how I got into for my journey. So alcoholism and the pain that I'm in. Finally, I go see a doctor in 2012. I've been sober about 5 years at that point. And I'm talking about my knee pain, my ankles, my knees, my hips. I'm playing hockey at the time. I'm playing inline hockey. And
for those listening, I don't want it to be missed, but his nickname was the Apocalypse, from what I hear. So if you know anything about an apocalypse in general, and or like the Marvel Cinematic Universe and the apocalypse and that genre, it's a great compliment to be called the Apocalypse.
Well, everybody will tell you I gave that nickname to myself.
Did you? Listen, that's you have that ability. So
well, see, I was doing my two sports during this time frame was inline hockey, which I absolutely loved. Right, it's a slower version of ice hockey, but it was just, I loved it. And boxing.
Yep.
And so I was doing a lot of boxing, and so there was a contest at my gym one day about coming up with your boxing nickname. And I came up with the Apocalypse, end of the world as you know it.
That's a great tagline.
Yeah. The one I picked for my now ex-wife was Pray for Death. And she actually won the contest with Pray for Death.
Oh my goodness. So,
and I got to tell you, I just made fun of her there. I don't mean to do that, because Michelle is an amazing woman. And, she lived through a lot of the worst parts of my life. I respect the shit out of her. And
yep.
Even though we're divorced, and at times she really hates me and she really struggles with me, that I'm going to be there for her for the rest of her life.
Yep. I say the same thing about, she calls me her husband. I call her my was wife, but she made me a better man. She helped me through the traumas that I experienced through life that I was holding on to, that I hadn't healed from and processed at that time. She was with me through that journey, and again, caught a lot of the brunt of some of the negative things, and same thing, and a great co-parent to my kids. I couldn't think of a better mom for the kids. And so, yeah, very much the same vein as you.
Yeah. I'll never speak a horrible word about her. And just those little fun things I just say like that, it's just all in fun. She is an absolute amazing woman. So if anybody's looking to date a great woman, call me up, let me know. I'll set you up.
There you go. And so you were introduced to, was it cannabis? Was it CBD? What was the form?
Yeah. The first thing I was introduced to when I actually went to the doctor was opioids. Right?
Oh, yeah, of course. Right.
It's a fucking solution.
There's some pills. Yeah.
Right. I
fucking drug dealers, man. They're drug dealers.
Yeah. I say, Doc, hey, look, I'm having trouble in my knees, everything else, and I don't know what I can do, what I can take, but I can tell you this, that I've got an addiction issue that I've worked hard on solving. And it wasn't with drugs, but it was with alcohol. And I don't want to, he goes, oh, no problem. These opioids are different. They're totally different things. Oxycontin is a really good drug. And, it's not like drinking. It's
heroin in a pill. And this is coming from experience of doing both.
Yeah.
It's heroin in a pill.
It's exactly what it is. And I got the pills at first, and I didn't start taking them, but I started checking around, and, I think my son had some dental work done, and he came home with 30 oxycodone, And I'm like, well, this is Oxycontin. It's not oxycodone. It's the same shit. It's the same stuff, just different manufacturer.
Yep.
And I started talking to people, and they started talking, you can't take that stuff. That stuff will kill you.
Yep.
And I'm like, well, what the hell am I going to do about this pain then? Because I've got, I feel like I'm going to have knee surgery here any time now. And I talked to somebody, someone similar to yourself, Jesse, who had been through this journey, who had been addicted to stuff. And he started talking about, in his new journey, was he was using CBD and some CBD with some THC in it, but he wasn't smoking it. He felt good about it, and it helped him with pain that he was experiencing in his joints. He was one of the guys I played hockey with. And I said, well, I don't even know what CBD is. At the point, only thing I knew about weed was I don't do it, and it's now legal in Colorado.
Yeah.
It's great. I think it's kind of cool to watch the growth of this industry and everything else, but I'm still in the toy industry at the point, and I haven't switched over to financing, and I haven't really paid too much attention to it. So I get introduced to CBD. I start using it. My pain goes from probably on an average on a daily basis 5 or 6 down to maybe at 1 or 2.
Wow. Yeah.
And so I look at it as it extended my joints, right? It extended my time when I haven't had surgery yet. I know it's probably someday in my future, but it's bought me another 10, 15 years of not having to go undergo the knife. And I'm always going to be, if I would have been started down the path, like you said, I mean, most people, they end up getting addicted to opioids and heroin started off in the doctor's office.
Yep. That's where a lot of it starts, because eventually the progression is the dosage isn't high enough. So they kick up the next dosage. They go from one to the other. They might start off with a Percocet, Vicodin, then eventually it leads to an OxyContin, which if you were to search largest criminal fines ever paid out in U.S. history, it's always big pharma and OxyContin producers. And it's literally, I've shot heroin and I've sniffed OxyContin, and there's no discernible difference except for you get higher faster when you shoot heroin, but the high is the exact same.
Yeah.
It's the exact same mechanisms that it affects in the brain and the addictive qualities of it. I think about it now and I'm like, how could you have people out there that are giving this level of pain meds and it's only masking? It's not actually healing the person. It's incredible.
Yeah, it's amazing. And it was a whole mindset and a mind fuck that the industry did. I don't know if you ever saw Dope Sick.
I have, yeah.
That was, not have been, personally, I hadn't ever been addicted to any of that stuff. But to see the eye-opening thing and the evilness and how, at least how it was presented on that show.
Oh yeah.
On how people they didn't give a shit. They just cared about the money.
That's what it is. I was selling OxyContin during that time of actually doing it. I started doing it, and they would run it up from Florida, $30 a pill. You could sell it in Boston for $80 to $100 a pill, and you're selling hundreds of these a week. I mean, for a poor kid from Boston, that was attractive. And then eventually I started sniffing it, and that led one thing to another. And I look at it now, and I use different healing modalities that actually work, from plant medicines to different things, from meditation, breath work, all these different things that are all over the spectrum that people might consider woo, but these are things that have been around for thousands of years that have been used all around the world to collectively heal. And we live in America, which is a great place. I've fought for this country. I love this country, but there's some things we have that are just fucked up. And one of the things that we have that's so messed up is our healthcare system. We're in a sick care system. We want to give people pills. We want to give people surgery. We don't want to really get to the root of the problem, because that would take out entire industries. If we actually healed people and gave people the knowledge that they can heal themselves, which we all have the power to heal ourselves if you take control of your life, so many businesses would be out of business.
Yep. Chris Rock talks about it, right?
Oh yeah.
Like they're still pissed off about polio.
Yeah.
They cured polio, and there's no comeback in polio now. You get it. Nope. Money's in the comeback.
But right. Yeah. Or the perpetual COVID 3000, all these different variants, whatever. But just getting back to your story, I want to learn, did you first experience this healing modality through a topical? Was it pills? What were you doing to get your healing? Yeah.
Both tinctures, and I started off with just the topicals at first. That shit worked great, right? I don't know how it works or why it works, but I'm not feeling high, and my pain has gone down or subsided or even completely gone away. I mean, at times it would go away completely.
Yep.
And I was like, this stuff is a miracle. And then I was introduced to some tinctures. Don't really like the flavor of the tinctures too much. Some of them are really, really nasty. Some of
Yep.
them they try to cover up with, putting in some sugars and stuff. But for the most part, the topicals have worked well for me. What works well for me is a full spectrum, where it's all the CBDs and a little THC all mixed
Yep.
together like the way it's supposed to be. I'm not opposed to ever using marijuana. I think it is a medicine. It's
Absolutely.
I know it's a medicine. And it's funny because I did a dab at a trade show one time. They had THC dabbing over at one side and they had CBD dabbing. And how quickly the anxiety and the pain left my body by doing a CBD dab was instantaneous.
It's incredible.
Instantaneous. And so I'm sold that the actual best way to use CBD, I'm guessing, is probably in a vape that you could take. And, if you're in serious pain or serious anxiety, it's the fastest. Now, I can't find a really good CBD vape right now. It's full spectrum that, the industry hasn't really focused on it right now because of the FDA and the fact that it's been nuts and no one knows what to do. But there's a whole serious category of medical products that you could buy over the counter if the FDA will finally pull its ass out of its, and they've been focused on obviously COVID and shit like that. But
For sure.
and since, it's been a good 4 years now that the industry has been ready to take off, and, it's not. I know there's some bad players in the industry, and I know that's always going to be the case, but we want regulation. We want regulation that makes sense, and we'll work within any regulation that you give us to provide good products to people who need to use it. So bottom line, get your shit together, FDA. Let's get it done.
Right. Yeah. And there's a lot of changes that are coming on, like you say, full spectrum. I use that term a lot, but full spectrum on all the healing modalities, from CBD, THC based products to even, things like psilocybin mushrooms and DMT and all these other things that really it's in how you use them.
Yeah.
A hammer can be used to build a house, or it can tear a house down. It's the same thing with these plant medicines. You can overdo it, or you can do it to where there's some intention behind it. There's some work behind it. And you can have these beautiful experiences, from healing to insights to connection with spirit, God, whatever you believe in. And these things are here for a reason, and they haven't ever really gone away. And now they're becoming more top of mind. They're being used in therapeutic clinical settings. So there's a beautiful renaissance going on right now that we're living through. And I know that you've called yourself an evangelist. I am with the things that I do. Talk about how that plays out in Sweet 420 and what you're doing today.
Oh yeah, it's one of the reasons why I wanted to move into the weed industry, right? First of all, as a business level, when I was watching these companies go through the same thing we went through at Wabafun, where we had hockey stick style growth and the lack of capital to meet that growth. And in the weed industry, you've got companies, the only way they can get growth capital is they have to sell off chunks of their company.
Yep.
Because equity is the only solution. There wasn't any debt solutions for them. And that's one of the things we focused on, was providing a way for companies to maintain their ownership. Because as a business owner, and it's funny because this is my 8th company I started, right? My Sweet 420 Solutions. Being a business owner, I hated when I finally got something started taking off, started getting to be where it was commercially viable. And then, now everybody wants a piece.
Oh yeah. The vultures come out to play.
Right. And so you've worked your ass off. And one of the people in the weed industry where it really impacted me, I had a friend from high school, and she and her husband started a weed company out here in Denver, and they were doing exceptionally well. But as they grew their company, they ended up having to sell off chunks and chunks along the pathway. Fast forward 5 years later, they sell their company for $25 million. And as opposed to owning 100 or 90% or 80%, if there's some really good debt opportunities in the market, they own less than 5%.
Oh,
so they had a good payday.
Yeah.
Right. They did okay. They had a nice dinner that night and celebrated, probably went on a nice vacation, but it didn't change their life.
No.
And, they poured their heart and soul into it. So they're doing another bite at the apple with another company. They're doing the same thing now in Massachusetts. But the bottom line is that it's, it was a necessary evil. And we talk about, especially in social equity, we started another company called Sweet 420 Access that focuses specifically on providing capital to minority-owned cannabis companies, right?
Yep.
And it's just a small percentage of the companies out there that are owned by minorities. Is that we're looking at trying to create generational wealth.
Yes.
Right. For us, it's all about ownership, and that's what it's always been about us. I mean, you've got, as a business owner, you've got choices when it comes to growth capital. You can do debt, you can do equity.
Yep.
Basically your two choices. So now it comes down to, if I do equity, that can be really expensive, especially if I'm successful. I sell 25% of my company today for $1 million, and then we sell the company for 10 million. A
Yep.
year or two later, that wasn't $1 million, that was $2.5 million
Mm-hmm.
that was taken out of your pocket. So we developed some really good debt products that we think are fair. There's a lot of vultures in the industry, as is in most industries. There's a lot of people that came that they do like bait and switch when it comes to debt. They'll give you like a number, but by the time everything's said and done,
Oh yeah.
the true effective rate is 2 to 3 times that amount. So we've really focused on, we want to bring transparency and we want to educate, and we want to help, and I can't tell you how many times we've gotten on a term sheet where the interest rate that we have on our term sheet might be double what someone else is presenting, but we ask them to send us the term sheet, redact who the company is. We don't give a shit, at the end of the day. And we actually do the math, because sometimes the math in finance can be difficult. We do the math and we show that our rate, that it looks like on paper that's more expensive than that one, is actually a third of what it is compared to the other companies.
Yep.
And it's been amazing. We grew our portfolio. I think we're right around 35 million today, starting from zero.
Yeah.
We're probably going to hit 50 to 100 million within the next, I think we'll hit 50 million by the end of this year. And I think we could hit 100 million probably in 2.5 years.
That's beautiful growth. Yeah.
Depending on the source of capital. And, our thing is we lend money, and then the money comes back. So
yeah,
the portfolio goes up and down, right? If we've probably put out close to 70, $80 million over the past, 4 years. But the portfolio right now is right around 30, 35 million. I'm expecting to grow it dramatically in the next, 6-7 months. And my pipeline right now is just, I can't keep up. It's just amazing. So it's a good,
beautiful brother. You're affecting change, and you're driving the mission, and what you're doing for people that are becoming sober, and what you're doing for people that are business owners and that are trying to take their product to market, or trying to enhance their company and enhance the lives of their clients and their employees, and then all the way into a community reinvestment act, in a sense where you're giving opportunity to people that may have not had that same opportunity. And it's a beautiful calling, man. It's a beautiful way to be of service.
It's what I think I've been put on this earth because I really love startup business, right? It's what I do. I love it. I can consult and tell people how to do it. My experiences that I've had. My business partner Dave will actually say, you should talk to us before you do all this shit, because we made every mistake.
Yeah.
And some of them we survived, some of them we didn't.
That's business. Yeah.
Totally. But one of the things we did learn is that there's always roadblocks. We're just going to get over them. We're going to move the company forward one way or the other. That's what separates entrepreneurs from entrepreneurs, is the fact that we are going to overcome these
yep.
along the way. We're not giving up.
That's most of the battle, right? In sports, in life, and in business, you can fail, but you can learn from that failure and keep moving forward. But as soon as you say, I quit, and throw in the towel, there's no more progress. You're done. So it's all about not quitting.
It's all about not quitting. If you want to quit and everything else, I understand, but you're better off as an employee.
Yeah.
As opposed to an entrepreneur, or just a business owner in general. There's obviously, you have to look at stuff, and you have to say, if there's times you need to shut something down, that makes sense, but that doesn't mean you're done.
No, you just reinvent.
Right. How many companies in this world are around for over 100 years?
Oh yeah.
Very few. How many are around more than 5-10 years? Very few.
Right.
But there's always like, hey, that door closed, this one open, now we're going to move here, and now we're moving. It's just, nothing excites me more. And I got to tell you, when I went to my first trade show in the marijuana industry, I was blown away. You've got entrepreneurs there that have everything against them, right? Lack of capital.
Yep.
Can't find the money to do what they're going to do. The government's out to get them. The IRS is out to get them. Every single roadblock is put in front of these guys, And yet these guys are all cowboys out there, and they're
Yeah.
doing what they do to survive. And if you can't get juice from going to a marijuana convention, especially if you come from anything like the toy industry, whatever, the toy industry was driven by the economy, right? If the economy is good, buyers are buying, you're happy.
Yep.
Economy is not so good, it's just like the most depressing place to be. The marijuana industry, even though it hadn't been proven out yet, like this is still an experiment, in a lot of states, is the most exciting industry I've ever seen in my life.
That's amazing. With
the most exciting entrepreneurs and the best entrepreneurs I've ever seen. So
it's a beautiful time to be there, brother.
I love it. I love it. I like to say that this isn't my last gig that I'm going to do, but this may be my last industry I'm going to be in, because I think I'm going to stay here in this industry. Maybe, the mushroom industry really excites me. I mean, what excites me about, what's crazy is the fact that I'm willing to put CBD in the stuff on my body, and there's very little testing, or very little, not testing, but like studies that have been done, just because of how the government has looked at marijuana in the past.
Yep.
There are shitloads of studies on mushrooms.
No question. Yeah.
and it's been proven, and it is probably one of the biggest, most exciting leaps, if we can get to that, where we're going to see legalization in that arena as well. And so I'm excited about that. So maybe the industry I may not be in the weed industry, but it will be in one of these
plant medicines, man.
Plant medicine. I think that's the way to look at it. I'm in the plant medicine industry.
Love it, brother. Well, thank you so much for being you. Thank you for your vulnerability. Your vulnerability is courage to be able to share these things, which to you, you've talked about them so many times, but sharing that story is powerful, because if one person that hears this or sees this changes their perspective with maybe an addiction or something in their business, you've done your job. And I do, on that note, I want to say to anybody listening or watching this, if you have any issues with drinking or drugs and you want to talk to someone, feel free to reach out to me. And, if they want to reach out to you, if you put that out there, but I definitely know what it's like to need someone to talk to, and feel free. So if you're in trouble, if you want some, some insights, if you have some questions, you can always hit us up through the Jesse T Show, and we'll be glad to help you. So, but thank you so much for being you, brother.
Hey, just can I throw out my email address in case somebody does want to reach out to you?
Go for it.
Jeff@sweet420solutions.com. It's JEFF at sweet, SUITE 420 solutions plural.com. And Jesse, I know we haven't known each other for very long, but I do feel like we're brothers, and I look forward to actually spending some time with you when you come out to Colorado, when I come down to Georgia sometime.
I can't wait, brother. We're going to see where life takes us, man. All the best to you and all you're doing, and I can't wait to chat soon, man.
You too. I appreciate this opportunity.